crazy. Might as well. I'm walking through a ghost town, y'all ain't playing my sounds. Don't tell me to calm down, don't tell me to calm down. Only time I go backwards is when I wanna moonwalk. Don't test me, my mood's wrong. Don't test me, my mood's wrong. We are who we say that we are. You were lost in the stars, and it's all from the start. Never running no pace, never on the right page. But we still read that book, and we still run that race. Ay. Mississippi racer riding out, no shortcuts, no time for that. Mississippi racer riding out, till the wheels fall off, I'm driving that. Mississippi racer riding out, we'll stop burning, strike the match. Mississippi racer riding out, red light, green light, red light, good night. Ay. Red light, green light, red light, good night. 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 Time to chill, don't sweat it.
Good morning and welcome. It is Coffee and Sports. It is the morning show powered by Wire to Wire Network. Thank you so much for making us part of your morning routine, whether you are live on Facebook, live on YouTube, or live on Roku TV. Thanks to those fine folks over at Northeast Sports Productions. I am Chris, and of course, that over there, that is Mo. Mo, how are you this morning, sir?
Doing well, my friend. Doing well on a Feel Good Tuesday. Interesting night in the NBA.
You call it interesting. Others call it devastating. We'll get to that, though. We'll get to that in a little bit.
It's only devastating if you're a degenerate gambler. I mean, if you're just a fan, you're just a little down.
Hey, it is too early in the morning to be taking pot shots at Ms. Zuhara, okay? He has too many things going on in his life right now for that, Mo.
Fair enough. I don't want the Interpreters Association to come after me. Fair enough.
Gosh. Let's talk. So, Mo, there's times in life where people tell you, your destiny is destiny, fate is fate, and sometimes you just can't outrun it. And we're finding out this morning that looks to be exactly what happened to the brand new quarterback of the Atlanta Falcons, Kirk Cousins. So earlier this week, we found out the circumstances for which Kirk Cousins decided that he was no longer going to be part of the Minnesota organization. And one of those circumstances was the fact that Minnesota was very transparent with him. And they told Kirk that we plan on drafting a quarterback in this draft. We plan on using a high pick to draft a quarterback in this draft. And we plan on focusing on putting a plan for the future in place, even if you decide to re-sign with us. And not the rumor innuendo, the reports from Kirk Cousins' camp are saying that's one of the contributing factors to why he decided not to re-sign with Minnesota. He wanted to be the guy. He still thinks that he is the guy. And rightfully so, Mo, if you feel that and you believe that and your body of work shows that you are still that, he didn't want to have to worry about looking over his shoulder, dealing with the questions, the back pages of the press. When are they going to start so-and-so? Is it time yet? Kirk's lost back-to-back games. Does that mean so-and-so is getting the start now? He don't want to deal with that. So he goes to Atlanta, where they have no quarterback, where he is literally almost a Hall of Fame-like upgrade over what they currently had at the quarterback position. Even if they kept Ritter on the roster, he would be the backup, and there would be no questions that Kirk Cousins is the guy in Atlanta until the draft came, when they decided to use a high pick to draft the quarterback of the future and not tell Kirk Cousins until moments before it was going to happen. Mo, sometimes you cannot escape your fate and you cannot escape your destiny. And for Kirk Cousins, this appears to be the universe that this appears to be the plan that the universe had in place for him.
It does. And look, I don't think Atlanta knew for sure, maybe a couple days up until the draft, that they were all in agreement on taking Penix. What I will say is Michael Penix must be really impressive in an interview. He must, like we talk about being able to sell yourself, he must be excellent at selling himself. And I understand Kurt's feelings towards, I don't want to look over my shoulder, but if I'm the franchise, and this goes back to the Vikings as well, Kurt, you're terrific, but you're in your mid-30s. We do have to think about the future. We do have to think about the future. There's nothing wrong with that. And let's be honest, every draft isn't the same. If you feel strongly about a guy, you've always said this, you go get him. You go get him if you think he's your guy. Well, they went out and got Penix. They think Kurt's their guy for right now. Maybe Kurt's their guy for the next 2 or 3 seasons. But they think down the road, Penix is going to be that guy. I get why Kurt's a little upset, but I'm like, dude, you got $100 million. If you lose your job in 2 years' time, you still got $100 million. You're going to be okay. And you can ball out. If you ball out on the field and do the things you've been doing in Minnesota and put up big numbers and lead the Falcons to the playoffs, Penix is going to be sitting over there holding a clipboard. You're good.
It's funny because, Mo, obviously neither of us have gone through free agency as a quarterback in the NFL, so we don't necessarily have the inside information here. But I think it's not a stretch of logic that while Kirk is having conversations with the Falcons, I bet you at some point in those conversations, someone might have said from the Falcons side, why not Minnesota? Why not go back to Minnesota? Why do you want to leave Minnesota?
Right.
And had he shared with them, well, they said they're going to draft a quarterback. I think that I'm the guy for the next 3 or 4 years. I also want to deal with that. And they're probably like, oh, okay. And then I feel like draft night, there was that one guy in the room who was like, should we tell Kirk? Did anyone tell Kirk we're doing this? He literally said the first day we talked to him, this is what, whoa, guys, we got to go tell Kirk.
Yeah, I think you make a valid point, or you could look at it this way. Look, organizations aren't always what I would call, upfront about everything they want to do and their intentions. Maybe they full well knew, yeah, he was leaving because they're going to draft a quarterback, and they're like, we are too, but don't say anything.
You'll figure it out eventually.
Right. Let's get him under contract and then go, Kirk. It was a last minute decision, bro. We had to get him.
Oh my gosh. Let's get to JG this morning. Good news, JG reached his final destination. We had the road version of JG yesterday.
JG.
This morning, JG is clanging and banging, but he has taken some time to hop on here with us and talk a little Major League Baseball. JG, welcome into the show, sir. How are you doing today?
Oh man, I'm doing fine. I'm doing fine. It was a little bit of a long day yesterday. After I got off the phone with you guys, I actually ended up breaking down on the interstate in middle of Louisiana.
Wow.
I was stuck in Natchitoches. Loved the town of Natchitoches. Loved it. One of my favorite towns in Louisiana. Not where I wanted to be, broken down sitting at a dealership, at a Ford dealership, waiting for my truck to get fixed for 6 hours. But yeah, I'm back. I'm back in Arkansas, safe and sound. So that's a good thing for it right now.
It's an adventure, JG. Everything is an adventure. JG, every now and then we take time when we have you on the show to just kind of span the Major League Baseball universe and kind of look at where we currently sit. We did this about a week and a half ago, so let's do it again this morning. I want to start in the National League West. Obviously, things have been righted if you are a Dodgers fan. They've won 8 of 10. They currently have the second most wins in the National League, and there is nobody above 500 in that division. So we're not going to talk Dodgers. We're going to talk the rest of the division. Is there a chance of any other team in that division even making a run to get close to the Dodgers or even making a run to get into the playoffs? Because after the 19-19 Padres, it's not looking good over there in the National League West, especially when you're talking about the Diamondbacks, who had the success that they had last year, and the Giants, who constantly position themselves as a team that has the money to make the big moves and contend, and it's not going their way either. We're not even going to talk about the Colorado Rockies. They're the same dumpster fire the Miami Marlins are. So we can skip that conversation. But if you look at those other 3 teams in that division, I think this far into the Major League Baseball season, we're about 40, 45 games in. This is not where I think these 3 teams thought they were going to be.
No, and I think right now the disappointment is the Diamondbacks. Again, they were in the World Series last year. They were expected to at least take a big jump. At least in my eyes, they were going to take a big jump to challenge the Dodgers for the division. Padres are usually the team. Obviously, they have the money. They spend money. They have been able to bring in players, and they flirt around the 500 mark. They look good at times, and then you sit back and go, man, what are you doing? Now they did make the trade for Arias. We talked about that yesterday. That's a good move for them. I think that's gonna help them as they get going into the summer. But the Diamondbacks are the disappointing team right now because I expected them to be more competitive. They made moves that seem to be better to enhance this team. And I know we haven't seen Jordan Montgomery really yet for them. Eduardo Rodriguez missed a good portion of the season, so the pitching side has not been what they were hoping for. At least getting those two arms involved in the rotation. You bring Eugenio Suarez, who is supposed to be an upgrade over what they had last year with Evan Longoria, and he's played well at times, but not what we were hoping for. And then Lourdes Gurriel, I'll say, who he had a really great hot start at the beginning, the first couple of weeks in the season. He's kind of fallen off a little bit. So there's been disappointment right now in Arizona, at least in my eyes, that they were supposed to be the team that does challenge the Dodgers. And they've fallen flat right now. The Padres seem to be the closest team talent-wise. They still have a lot of talent. It's just a matter of is there enough in the Padres system to elevate themselves to that level? I don't think so. The Dodgers are a machine. They continue to be a machine. They showed it this past weekend, sweeping my Braves and doing what they're supposed to do against teams, and that's just absolutely blow them out and beat them. So this is a one-team race in this division. I don't see the Padres, Diamondbacks, and certainly the Giants. I don't even want to talk about the Giants because, as you said, they have money. Nobody takes their money, which is, I guess that's synonymous of the state of California. Maybe, I don't know. Taking a little shot, but they're just they a subpar team, and they're playing, and they're getting kind of. It looks like, from what Bob Melvin said recently, they're a subpar team playing worse. Well, that's not a good sign. So the Giants are just going to be the Giants, and the other two teams are going to try, but they just haven't. I don't know if they have enough to really push the LA Dodgers.
The Brewers and the Cubs are two very interesting teams. They're tied atop of their division. The rest of the division is below 500 below them. The Brewers are a team that lost a ton of pitching. We didn't know what was going to happen with them. They're tied for their division lead right now. The Cubs are a team that have decent pitching, but their offense, their great hitters are not being great hitters right now. And they're finding a way to manage to stay afloat, and they're tied for the top of the division. As you look across the season, which of these two teams do you think is going to be the one that finds their stride into the summer? Is it going to be the Brewers, who are finding a way to find pitching when they didn't really have much to have? Or do you think the Cubs hitting is going to come around, and that's going to help push the Cubs to the top in this division?
I think the Cubs are going to be the team to beat in this division. You're getting a lot out of Shota Imanaga right now. Justin Steele just came back from his hamstring injury he sustained in spring training. So you're talking about two really good pitchers that are superior than what the Brewers have at the moment. And again, credit the Brewers; they're still finding ways to win games. But when you look at it on paper, I know the games are not played on paper. What the Cubs have and what the Cubs are getting coming back is going to be better than what the Brewers have. And I think the offensive side of the ball is going to get better for the Cubs. I think when Bellinger comes back, obviously it's a matter of does he figure out how he played in 2023 and recreate that, or are we continuing to see the 2021, 2022 version of Cody Bellinger that was just absolutely awful? That's a question mark for the Cubs, but I think that he'll do enough to help the lineup and continue to help the team win games. You have a little bit more. I think you have more in Chicago than you do in Milwaukee. I don't trust the Brewers pitching long term throughout the season to make them a contender in this division. So I'm gonna side with the Cubs that they're gonna get it figured out on the offensive side more than what the Brewers will on the pitching side, and be more consistent as we get through the summer into the second half.
We know you don't like their jerseys, but the Washington Nationals are a 500 ball club right now, and that does surprise some people who didn't think that Washington was going to be at the 500 mark almost 40 games into the season. Is this kind of where you see them ending up, a little bit above 500, a little bit below 500? Do you think they can make a push for a wild card based on how their team is currently comprised?
No, they're showing growth, and that's something that you're seeing a lot with these young teams in baseball right now, like the Tigers and like the Royals, and you throw the Pirates in there too. I know the Pirates last year showed growth at times, and then they fell off. The Reds last year showed growth and just tailed off at the end of the season. These young teams, and then you throw the Nationals in there. These young teams are they're figuring it out and they're growing because one, the new rules do help young teams. The new rules from last year, the pitch clock, the faster games. If you're younger, you're able to handle it better. And a lot of these guys who came up from the minor leagues over the last few years, they've already endured the pitch clock. They've already endured the faster games. They've already understand how to manage themselves in this type of season. So you're getting a little bit more out of those group, in their development, and that's what you're getting with the Nationals right now is the development of the young kids. Again, C.J. Abrams, he's kind of starting to figure it out a little bit more. Mackenzie Gore, same thing. The pitcher for the Nationals, he's figuring it out a little bit more, and so that's a positive sign. And you're getting that, like I said, all these young teams that you wouldn't expect. We didn't expect the Royals to be competitive, and they're being very competitive right now. The Nationals, it's about growth. Do you show growth each and every year to get out of your rebuild? That's the point of rebuild. You can't be in a rebuild forever. You have to show. Are you heading in the right direction? It was a matter of time for the Nationals because they made a lot of moves. They brought in a lot of young players. It was just about the development of those kids that you're hoping to see in the big league level. It wasn't going to be year 1, year 2, year 3, but you're starting to see more out of those kids now. So it's not a surprise. Will they be competitive for a wild card this year? No, I don't see them being that. But they're going to be close. They'll be flirting with the 500 mark. That's a win. If you're the Nationals, that's a win, a winning season. Even if you're 6-7 games under 500, that's a positive sign that you're in the right direction. I think any Nationals fan after the last couple of years would absolutely take that, and that's what you're going to get from them this year. They're scrappy. They're a scrappy team, and they're going to continue to show that throughout the year. And it's going to be they'll have a factor in the National League East as far as playing the Phillies and Braves. They will be a factor as far as who wins this division.
JG, talk to a Houston Astros fan, and they're going to give you a whole bunch of positive spins on a team right now that is 10 games under 500. But let's be honest, if the Mariners or the Rangers could get their business together and not be a team that is barely over 500, this 7-game deficit would be a lot larger for the Astros. You've seen the Astros for nearly 36 games now. What do you make of them? Is this something they're going to eventually turn around? They're 10 games under, but they're only 7 games out of first place because it doesn't look like Seattle or Texas wants to run away with this thing yet. What do you make of where Houston is as they go into their series with the Yankees this week?
No, I am not buying. I'll say if we do a buy or sell, I'm selling the Astros being challenging. I know there's talent still on the Astros team, championship caliber players that have won World Series. Still on this roster. There's still a lot of issues. There's a lot of questions. Pitching is a factor, and I know you can say the same thing about the Rangers. The injuries have really piled up on the Rangers, and now you're having to go to Jack Leiter and Owen White in the rotation right now with Eovaldi going down. You're still waiting on Scherzer, who's making rehab starts in minors. You don't know when DeGrom is going to be coming back, so there's a lot of questions still in that Rangers staff. Again, Corey Seager has been struggling, not the MVP caliber player that we were expecting him to be this year. So there's a lot of questions that need to be asked and answered for the Rangers. But I think there's still more talent on the Rangers team overall than what's going on with the Astros. The Mariners they have to find consistency. They're not dealing with the injuries that the Rangers are dealing with, but the times where you look at them and go, man, you're a good team, but you don't play like it on a consistent basis. This is a team that, again, talking about my Braves, they took 2 of 3 against the Braves, and they looked dominant against the Braves. Then they go and have some questionable games. Like, man, like what you need your superstars to help out. Julio Rodriguez not playing like he was supposed to be playing. That's going to hurt them. So consistency from the Mariners is needed. Sustaining your season through the injuries for the Rangers. But I think there's still more talent on the Rangers. I think the Rangers are still the team to beat in this division. I think they have more to stay ahead of the Astros, and I think the Astros are just digging themselves a hole. There's still too many injuries on top of questions is not a good thing for the Astros, and I think that's what they're facing right now. And I just don't see them having enough to really challenge the Rangers, through in this division as we get through the summer.
And then, JG, let's finish off with the American League East. Which is closer to being truer? The Red Sox being 19-16 and having a winning record this season and being competitive in the wild card race, or the Blue Jays being 3 games under 500 and being closer to being an under 500 team than they are a wild card team? Because coming in, those were reversed. We didn't think the Red Sox were going to do much, despite the moves they were making, despite their claims that they were going to be winning a winning baseball team. And then once again, and I think we've heard it for 2 or 3 years now, this was going to be Toronto's year. And I never bought into the Blue Jays. I don't think you quite bought into them either. We admitted they have talent, but we've been hearing for a few years now that the Blue Jays were going to take the East, and here they are in the basement almost 40 games into the season. Who are you buying into more? The Blue Jays getting out of the basement and being competitive for a wild card, or the Red Sox falling backwards and not being as good as they look this early?
If you give me those two options, I'm gonna say the Red Sox. I think the Red Sox staying up is more likely than instead of falling back down into the bottom of the division, than the Blue Jays figuring it out and turning it around and being more competitive. And the difference maker is Alex Cora. Alex Cora, for some reason, and I know because the Red Sox have not been a good team the last couple of years, but we forget just how good of a manager Alex Cora really is. And he's not mentioned in the top 5 managers in baseball. And it may be because of what's going on with the different scandals that would played the Astros. The Red Sox were involved in that along with the Yankees. So there's been a lot of, I'm sure there's a lot of don't act all innocent, Chris. We all know. Don't act all innocent with it. All right. It's been proven. They just, again, Major League Baseball washed their hands. We know it. But I think that the difference maker is Alex Cora, and he is such a good manager. He's creating, he's keeping that culture that, again, they won a World Series not too long ago. I think we also forget that side of it too, that the Red Sox did win a World Series a handful of years ago. I know it's been a while as far as years, but it's been recent still, and that was because of Alex Cora doing what he's done as a manager. So I think that's the difference maker, and they're playing good. You have some players on the Red Sox that are playing well. Question is how long they will. Tyler O'Neill I think he's finally happy. He's happy he's out of St. Louis and the dumpster fire that Ali Marmol has created in St. Louis. And he's playing to the potential that we expected O'Neill to have for so many years. I think that's a big boost for the Red Sox. There is some questions on the roster, but Alex Cora doing what he's doing is a fine job, and it should be considered, if he continues this path with the Red Sox this year, manager of the year votes should absolutely come his way. So I vote for the Red Sox to stay up and competitive, just because of Alex Cora and the job that he can do and the job that he is doing.
JG, we appreciate your time this morning. Get back to the clanging and banging, and we'll see you next time, all right?
Sounds good, guys. Real quick, I won't be on with you guys on Thursday. We are hitting the road for conference tournament Thursday morning, so I'll miss you guys, but I'll be looking forward to getting back with you guys on Monday.
Good luck this weekend, sir.
Good luck.
Thanks, guys.
Mo, always a pleasure to have JG on the show with us. Mo, let's pivot to this, sir. We had NBA playoff action last night. If you are a fan of the Denver Nuggets, we talked about this yesterday, Mo, and we kind of said we thought things were going to kind of right themselves in that series. And if things went the route of game 1, if you're a Denver fan, you should be smashing the panic button because the house is on fire and you are trapped in the middle of it. Well, Mo, the house is on fire, and the Denver Nuggets are trapped in the middle of it, because if you walked away from game 1 of that series thinking that the Minnesota Timberwolves played really great defense and did a lot of great things on the defensive side of the basketball, well, they were 10 times better in game 2 than what they were in game 1. You want to talk about maybe the greatest defensive effort of this season against a quality team? I think we saw that last night in game 2. And the final score, which was a 26-point victory to the Timberwolves, I don't even think properly showcases what they did on the defensive side of the ball to that Denver Nuggets offense. Mo, they completely suffocated them and made them a non-factor for that game.
Just dominated. I'm watching the game, and there's a moment in the game Jamal Murray's bringing the ball up, and Alexander Walker is guarding him, and he's smiling and laughing, and he's saying, "I'm going to be here all night, all night." I'm watching Alexander Walker, McDaniels, Anthony Edwards. I'm watching them guard, run through screens, because it's easy to accept the screen and say, "I got screened." They're fighting through screens. They're giving them no space. They're guarding. I would say McDaniels and Alexander Walker right now are defending the way people think Paul George and Kawhi Leonard still defend, and they don't. They're defending at that high level, but it's not just those two players. This team is in lockstep defensively. Like Karl-Anthony Towns, who's not really known for being a great defender, he's given extra efforts on rotations, showing, recovering. I mean, they didn't just beat the Nuggets. They physically dominated the Denver Nuggets to the point where the Denver Nuggets are yelling at the referees. They're yelling at themselves. If I feel like watching the game, Denver is facing adversity in a way they haven't in the last couple seasons, and they're not handling it well at all. Like, to the point, obviously, I don't know if you saw the part where Jamal Murray throws a hot pack out on the court. He throws a hot pack out on the court. And one, you can't do that. And two, it is dangerous because somebody slips on and hurts themselves. And I don't know. They haven't brought it up yet, but I think Jamal Murray might be suspended for game 3. And I'm not sure that's going to make much of a difference when you get annihilated the way they got annihilated. Mind you now, Gobert, the guy who's going to win Defensive Player of the Year, he didn't play.
Nope.
He didn't play. They were actually better on defense because they were quicker last night. That was the crazy part. And because both Naz Reid and Karl-Anthony Towns can shoot from distance, they spread Denver out, and they ate Denver up. They attacked Joker. See, most of the time, Joker has you on your heels. They had him on his heels because he plays drop coverage. You can't play drop coverage with bigs that can shoot. I'm watching it, and you say the house is on fire. I'm saying the house is on fire, and they forgot to pay the water bill. They're in trouble.
We didn't think on the show yesterday morning that Minnesota was going to be able to punch Denver in the face again. We thought that coming into this, Denver was going to have a wrinkle. They were going to have something in place if Minnesota came out and tried to handle them the same way defensively that they did in game 1. Early on, and I know it was only an 8-point lead after the first quarter, Mo, but you watch that first quarter and you walk out of it and you're like, yeah, they're down by 8, but they could easily be down by 12. They could easily be down by 15. Like, you almost felt like Minnesota had missed a couple of good looks they probably should have had in that first quarter, and it really should have been a 12 or 13-point game after the first. So you felt fortunate if you were Denver to only be down by 8. Oh, and then Minnesota goes in and puts up over 18. You know, they're plus 18 in the second quarter on you. And you're like, well, this is what the first quarter kind of felt like. It just didn't reflect it on the scoreboard. But Mo, to your point, I didn't see. I mean, yeah, we saw some stuff in the second half where they were trying to do some different things. But when you're down by 26 going into the half, I mean, it's too late to be changing it up in the third. You know what I mean? Like, we should have seen the new wrinkles early on in the first quarter for how you were going to handle getting punched in the mouth. And it looks like they didn't just punch you in the mouth. They got you in the headlock, and they just kept wailing on you because it doesn't even look like you were trying to dip and dodge to avoid it. You were just doing the same thing that you were doing in the second half of game 1, thinking that you were going to get a different result. And Minnesota's looking at you like, okay, well, we're going to double down on this. And that's what they did, Mo.
Jamal Murray is shooting 25% from the field. He's shooting 20% from 3. Joker's shooting 40% from the field. He's shooting 20% from 3. Their two best players, the two best players on their team that basically they disrupt everybody else's defense, they're being dominated physically, dominant and frustrated. Like when Joker is able to get the looks he wants, he's turning the ball over at a high rate. I mean, he's turning the ball over. It seems like Minnesota's got like an extra 3 or 4 guys out on the floor. The way they're moving, the way they're playing in the passing lanes, and even though it's a 26-point lead, Chris, I'm sitting there thinking, is there a way Denver can cut this down to like 13? I'm not saying win the game, but feel good about themselves going into game 3. Like we found something, and this is something that could work. I didn't see anything. And I know I saw the new wrinkle that Mike Malone put in the first half, and I thought it was a horrible new wrinkle because he was trying to run a 2-man game with Joker and Aaron Gordon, which I'm good with if Aaron Gordon is the diver or the dunker. But if you're going to run a 2-man game and Aaron Gordon is shooting 18-foot jump shots, I'll take that all day. I want Aaron Gordon shooting jump shots. He's not a good shooter. It was just a total domination. And I'm looking at Denver, and you know, they did a post-game interview. When your coach says, when you're asked the question, Coach, I know it's been a tough series so far. You're going into game 3. How you feeling? Can you rebound? And he goes, well, if we can trust each other, if we can believe. When he starts saying believe in each other, I was like, I don't feel good about that. If we can believe in each other, if we can trust each other, like, wow. These are the defending world champions. And like I said, we make our picks. We don't back away. I picked the Nuggets. I did. I thought it was going to be a great series. I still thought the champs would find a way to win. And it looks like they're just wilting under this young, hungry team coming for them. And I don't see any answers. I'm not saying it's over, but the odds of them winning 4 out of the next 5, that doesn't seem realistic.
And Mo, I mean, let's not forget the other thing at play here. You might know this. It's coming from your fan base. Laker fans this morning are saying we wore them down for you. That's what I'm hearing from Laker Nation this morning. We'll wait over here for the thank you card, Minnesota fans. We took them to the brink. And we took them to the brink in 5 games, Mo. We took them to the brink and wore them down for you. You're welcome, Minnesota. That's what I'm hearing from Laker country this morning.
The way I view this is differently. I would view it as Denver didn't really play that well versus the Lakers, but they were good enough to beat the Lakers. When you look at the way Minnesota is handling them defensively, you're like, the Lakers can't play defense like that. Nope. Nothing close to that. I saw the Lakers switch out and try to guard Joker with Anthony Davis. I seen them try to guard him with LeBron. No answers. No stopping him. Rui Hachimura. There were no answers. Jamal Murray didn't shoot well in that series, but he seemed like he made every big shot. And the laughable thing where Laker Nation is like, we wore them down, we put it on them, and like they did the T-Wolves a solid. I want people to know that every Laker fan out there is not like that.
Correct. Just the loud ones.
Yeah. Just the loud ones.
If you are a Pacers fan, you felt pretty good after 3 quarters of game 1 against the New York Knicks. For large stretches in those first 3 quarters, the Pacers looked like the better basketball team, but the Knicks ran them down in the 4th quarter and pull out the 121-117 victory. This is tough. This is tough, Mo, because we already agreed the Pacers were already kind of behind the 8 ball in the series because we both thought the Knicks were a much more talented team, and we both thought the Knicks were going to easily win this series. And then things don't go the way the Pacers need them to go in the 4th quarter of game 1, Mo. And now here we are. They're in an 0-1 hole, and that's not where you want to be when the consensus is talent-wise, you don't stack up against them. And it was all right there for the Pacers to take in game 1, and things just got a little wild there in the 4th quarter, especially towards the end of the game. Mo, what were your thoughts specifically what you saw from the Pacers in the 4th quarter and then the final 35 seconds or so?
But in the 4th quarter, the Pacers just turned the ball over too much. They were just really sloppy with the ball. They needed their leader, their point guard, to make a play. And I just thought Halliburton was just very passive, very sloppy with the ball. He's got to be solid in his decision making. He didn't have to put up 18 or 25 points a game. They can get by with Halliburton scoring 12 or 16, but as a point guard, as a floor leader, he's got to get guys in their sets late in game situations. He's got to make the right decisions, and he seemed lost. Like if you watch the game, the backup point guard again, T.J. McConnell, he outplayed Halliburton. Like at some point, the coach is going to have to make a tough decision to go. Maybe I'll have McConnell finish games out, or have them both in the backcourt at the same time, because he seems more ready for the moment. Look, athletic wise, the Pacers are actually the more athletic team. They're the younger team, and they want to play at a faster pace. And for the most part, the game was played where they wanted it to be played. And look, if not for a couple of really bizarre calls, I'll give the Knicks credit for making shots, but there's a call where they said Neesmith kicked the ball. It's a tie game. It's 115-115. That it wasn't a kick, but for some reason it didn't get reviewed. It didn't get, and I was like, wow, no challenge, no nothing. And then there's a pick on Miles Turner's sets on DiVincenzo. And like everybody, they're saying it today, but at the time I was like, that is the best acting job I've seen in a long, long time. I mean, talk about selling it. I mean, he even like did his legs up like he did a great job of selling it. Now, if you want to go letter of the law, was Turner moving? Sure. I don't know if I make that call. That I just don't. To me, that's just a play on. So that was a tough call. I really think the Pacers just have to execute. But I'll say this. They don't have to stop Jalen Brunson. They don't. But they have to make him less efficient. If he's going to get 40-something points and 20-something shots, that he's being too efficient. What really hurt them was you got 24 points from Josh Hart. You got 21 points from DiVincenzo. DiVincenzo normally averages about 15 points a game. Josh Hart averages about 10 or 11 points a game. That's what killed you. Guys who don't score like that, putting up those kind of numbers. If the Pacers can just be a little bit more solid on defense, and I know that's asking a lot because we know coming into the series, they don't really pride themselves on defense. I still think the Knicks win the series, but I think the Pacers are going to make every game interesting.
Well, we got 2 more games tonight. We got 2 game ones happening tonight. The first one is the Celtics and the Cavaliers. This was the other series where we were like, they're there, but it's not going to be a pretty series. Do the Cavaliers have a chance here? Any chance they can go out and steal game 1? I think Vegas has them as like 13-point underdogs going into this game, which is not pretty, much like their basketball. The past 7 games against the Orlando Magic, not pretty. Any chance that they do anything here in game 1, somehow catch Boston off guard? I'm laughing saying it because I just don't think it's going to go well.
Conventional wisdom says no, but Boston is a bizarre team. They're the kind of number 1 seed that can let you back into a game, or they can shoot themselves out of a game. What I will say is this: if they can't control Donovan Mitchell, if he comes out aggressive, I was thinking about this the other day, better than Jaylen Brown, not as talented as Jason Tatum, but he's more of a dog than Jason Tatum is. And that's interesting because if he's in attack mode and he gets on a roll, yeah, they have multiple guys that they can throw at him, but if you're not stopping him, it won't matter. And so I think that if he could be dynamic along with Darius Garland, yeah, I think they can steal a game in Boston. But if both teams, let's say both teams play their very best and we just get a good game, it won't be that good a game because you know what I'm saying? Like the best version of Boston is far better than the best version of Cavaliers. So this really comes down to, are the Celtics going to come out and go, we're not trying to make this an interesting game or a competitive series and lay down the hammer? If they do that, this is a 5-game series. But if Donovan Mitchell is cut loose and Darius Garland can get free, we have a series where we shouldn't have a series.
And then the other game 1 is the Thunder and the Mavs. Interesting series here. What do you think of the Mavs' chances against the Thunder?
When you have Luka and you have Kyrie, I say you have a puncher's chance. And they do have some size now with Bafford. I like what they did bringing in Washington. So they do have bigs that can help them in terms of physicality. I'm looking at the Thunder and I'm going SGA, Jalen Williams, and Chet Holmgren. That's their three. Then you throw in Josh Giddey, Isaiah. Don't forget what Lou Dort does defensively. Like, they have more talent. Let's put it out there. Oklahoma City is the more talented team, and yet my gut feeling is Dallas makes this a long series. I think this is a 7-game series because they might have more talent, and they can throw 1,000 defenders at Luka. Not one of their 1,000 defenders can guard him or stop him. And being physical with Luka, that's exactly what he wants you to do. He lives for physicality. And if Kyrie gets loose, that's another problem waiting to happen. So I think this is a long series. I think this will be the series that actually tests the young Thunder because they got no resistance from the Pelicans in the first round. So I think this is going to be maybe one of the better series of the second round.
Mo, one of the hottest conversation points around NBA circles yesterday was what a Jimmy Butler trade out of Miami would look like. In fact, it was such a hot topic around NBA circles yesterday that Pat Riley decided to talk about it. And Pat Riley said, no, we're not trading Jimmy Butler. Stop asking about it. Stop speculating about it. It's not going to happen. So, Mo, if we are to believe Pat Riley, and I think we have no reason not to believe him, I don't think they're going to trade Jimmy Butler. If they don't trade Jimmy Butler, what needs to happen in Miami for Miami to be a competitive team next season? I'm not just saying play in or barely making the playoffs. I'm saying, is there anything Miami can do to where once the playoffs come around, you're looking at Miami saying they're the second or third best team in the East?
I think Pat Riley, he's one of the brilliant minds in basketball. It's interesting because in the same day, he came out and said, I'm tired of hearing Jimmy talk about what we would have done if he were healthy. He needs to shut up. And I thought, to me, the way he talked about Butler in that press conference, the way he talked about Tyler Hero, I actually got the feeling that maybe he's saying we're not trading Jimmy, but I don't know that that's not on the table. Jimmy Butler, he's going to want a maximum contract. And I love Jimmy Buckets. I'm a fan. I can't give Jimmy Butler a maximum contract. Jimmy Butler, he's about as healthy as Kawhi Leonard is. Mm-hmm. And he's older than Kawhi Leonard. And I don't see where he's going to be part of your long-term future. I'm not giving him a max contract. And so I think Pat Riley, he's laying the groundwork to make some type of move. What they want or who they want, they're in pursuit. They would love to get Donovan Mitchell. They would love to get a dynamic scorer in there because that's what they need. They need a shot creator who can also drop 30 points a night while getting the teammates involved. They don't really have that in Miami. I love Jimmy Butler, but I think that Father Time is catching up with him and his body is breaking down more and more. Pat Riley is a mastermind of a lot of big moves. I think that Pat Riley is going to be very active this offseason. And really look at it. Look at all the question marks. I think Brandon Ingram is going to be on the move from the Pelicans. I think Paul George is going to be on the move for the Clippers. That may be somebody that Pat Riley will pursue. I think Pat Riley and the Heat are going to be big players in the offseason. It's just a matter of what package they have to put together to bring in a bigger name.
Mo, the 76ers have come out and said that there is going to be change. They are going to overhaul the team, and the only people who are safe are Embiid, Maxey, and Nurse. As far as everybody else, who knows where we're going to end up? Everything is on the table. This team needs to get better. Now, Mo, that's a great conversation to have. It's great to come out and say things like that. But there needs to be two to tango. So if you're talking about shipping players out, well, obviously you don't have complete control in that because you need someone who wants the players that you have on your team if you are going to ship them out. Obviously, if you're just talking about not re-signing players, that's fine. What do you make of the big swing or the big moves that the 76ers are saying are coming for this squad? And what do you see them trying to put around Embiid and Maxey to get to, and this is the same conversation we keep having with Philadelphia, to get to that next level? Because, Mo, we trusted the process. And the process produced a few seasons where you're like, ooh, we're getting really close. But then they didn't quite get as close as you wanted, much less there. And now you're talking about potentially overhauling the entire squad minus 2 players. Are we going to have to trust the process again? What is this going to look like, Mo?
So this is like a reprocess, right? Because you're going to be moving out guys like Tobias Harris, Buddy Hield.
Oh, buddy. The Lakers. Go to LA.
Why not? We're not going anywhere. You're good, buddy. No, I think you bring up a great point. You can talk about clearing out the roster, but what is the value of who you're letting go of? Like Tobias Harris is a good, solid NBA player, but I don't know there's a massive market where you can go, well, we're trading Tobias Harris guys, and we'd like Paul George in return. Like I'm sure you would. But the Clippers wouldn't do. The only way I think Paul George goes from the Clippers to the Sixers, maybe it's a sign and trade, because he also will want a max deal as well. Do you want to pay a 33-year-old Paul George, who's been a little brittle over the last few seasons, a max contract? Like, I think he would be a great fit for the Sixers, but I think there's a lot of money to invest in Paul George. And again, I don't know how you improve your roster. They're going to have some money to spend to bring in maybe one max player, but you still have to fill out the rest of the roster. And that to me is easier said than done. I honestly, if I were Philly, when they're talking about they need major changes, step one, fire Daryl Morey.
James Harden will sign off on that.
With the quickness, even though Daryl Morey has made that man over $250 million. Yeah.
Mo, if you look at the NBA landscape, and we're going to talk about Klay Thompson here in a moment, but you look at these different teams with these different players, and you're kind of in the same boat across the league. You're looking at these guys who have a lot of name value, but they also have that age tag of early to mid 30s. Some have the label of injury history. Some have the label of multiple teams and it hasn't really worked out their last couple of stops. And you're looking at all these names that could be available for trade. And you just say the names, and to a casual NBA fan, you're like, what? Kevin Durant, Jimmy Butler, Paul George, like they're all going to be on, like 3 or 4 years ago, that's major news, Mo. 3 or 4 years ago, they all end up in the same place. Things are happening. Now you look at it, and you're 3 or 4 years later, you're saying, what really is their trade value? What really is the trade value of Kevin Durant? Like, and it's crazy to think about that. But that's where we are now. We are now at a point where when you mention those names in a trade talk, Jimmy Butler on the move, you're not like, oh my God, he can win. You're like, oh, what can you even get for Jimmy Butler at this? Like, that's crazy, Mo. That's where we are with these guys.
It is crazy, but I think that a lot has been made of where we're at in the NBA in terms of a changing of the guard, right? When you think about LeBron, Steph, KD, they're all sitting at home. Jimmy Butler sitting at home, Kawhi sitting at home. Like, most of the guys that are going to be on Team USA, some of the starters, they're all sitting at home. And you're right, they all fit into that mid 30s. In some cases, LeBron's much further up the ladder. I think KD's going to be 36 next year. And to their credit, they're all still playing at a high level, Chris. But what do you do if you're a franchise that, I guess if you're a franchise and you think you're built to win now, you gamble, right? You like one of those guys, or if we have the space to get 2 of those guys, you make that move. But if you're a franchise and you have a couple of young talented guys, and you're like, we're going to do it the right way, but we'd like a veteran to come in and kind of guide these guys. You have different aspirations. I don't know the value of putting a Kawhi Leonard like on the Pelicans. I don't see what that would do for Zion or any of their young guys. And I'm not knocking Kawhi. I'm a fan. I'm just saying that the way the league is structured right now and what they did with the new rules, to where they make it harder to form these big threes, which I love that. I love that. I'm done with the big three idea, but I'm looking at this offseason, Chris, and LeBron, everything says he's going to stay with the Lakers. Everything says Steph's not going to leave the Warriors. And yet here's KD out there. Jimmy Butler's going to be out there. Paul George is going to be out there. You have to believe that those guys are going to have conversations about me and you together, make one more run at it. I mean, because that's LeBron's thing, right? He's all about right now, right? To get one more ring, he's about winning right now. I have to believe that he's going to try to pursue maybe a Paul George or the rumors, even though I wouldn't do it, that they're actually very much interested in acquiring Trae Young. The Lakers have 3 picks that they're going to be able to move come draft time. It's interesting. I do think there's a changing of the guard, but I think the old guard, at least in their minds, they've got one more run in them.
Klay Thompson's name has been linked to the Orlando Magic. Apparently, there is mutual interest. The report says that Klay thinks that the Magic are on the verge of exploding to the next level. I don't know if Klay missed the Magic's most recent playoff series, but maybe he thinks he is the piece that can get the Magic over that hurdle. Other veterans in the league that are playing better ball right now than Klay also seem to feel that way. But what do you make of the Klay Thompson to the Orlando Magic rumors?
So this version of Klay, the current version, he still shoots the 3 at almost 39%, much better than anybody Orlando has. So the opportunities that they were bricking this last series, Klay would be making those. Do I think he can help a young team like that? I do. Sure, he could. In a different role, in a reduced role, but I think he can help them a lot. Is he their number one choice? So if you're Orlando, do you want Klay Thompson, or do you want somebody maybe a few years younger who can actually grow with you, like a Donovan Mitchell or somebody of that ilk? I don't want to disrespect Klay Thompson, but I would go with the younger player. I would. Look at their core, Chris. They're 23 and under. Klay Thompson is going to be their teammate for what, 2 years? Like I just don't see the real benefits. I think Klay needs to go to a contender. You know what I mean? Like an older team that's built to win now. I think that's where Klay will have more value. So let's say Klay ended up on the Sixers. He could definitely be a pressure release for Embiid and Maxey with his shooting. So I think he does have value, but just not with a younger team.
Mo, Eli Manning tweeted yesterday.
I love that tweet.
He tweeted about Tom Brady. He said that he thought about attending the roast of Tom Brady last night, but he didn't because he didn't want to roast him for a third time. This, of course, referring to his 2 Super Bowl victories over Tom Brady as the quarterback of the New York Giants. And Mo, this got me to thinking, obviously, Eli has the Hall of Fame on the horizon, and there's always been a debate when it comes to Eli Manning of should he be a first ballot Hall of Famer. I think most agree that he should be there eventually. He does have 2 Super Bowl rings, but there are some people on the train of that he shouldn't be a Hall of Famer, because if you remove those 2 playoff runs, and even if you're looking at the regular season of his 2 Super Bowl runs, they weren't really anything spectacular. Right. And most people are of the belief that if you are a quarterback specifically, and you are going to go into the Hall of Fame, there needs to be a stretch of your career where you were either the guy or you were clumped into a very small group of the guys in the league. And I think it's fair to say that Eli was never really in that group. But Mo, I say all that to say this. Is there something to be said about the quality of the win on your resume when you're looking at Eli Manning? Because Super Bowls are Super Bowls, so he has 2 of them. But Mo, not only does he have 2 of them, he has 2 of them against Tom Brady. And I know that Eli wasn't playing defense in those games. I understand that. But if you're going to win a couple of Super Bowls and you're going to say, what else can bolster my resume besides winning 2 Super Bowls, it doesn't hurt when you can also be like, oh, by the way, they were both against Tom Brady. And oh, by the way, one of them prevented the Patriots from having an undefeated season. It doesn't hurt, right? It doesn't hurt,
Not at
but
all.
does it actually matter in the end that they were against Tom Brady and the New England Patriots?
Yeah, look, I think they're impressive wins and that are on his resume, and he's one of one that could make that claim versus Tom Brady. But I don't know where you are on this, but I'm in the category that Eli will eventually get in the Hall of Fame. I don't think he's a first ballot Hall of Famer. I don't. His career is no better than, say, a guy from back in the day, Jim Plunkett. Jim Plunkett was a lot like Eli. Not impressive during the regular season, but he led the Raiders on 2 great runs and won 2 Super Bowls. But he shouldn't be in the Hall of Fame, and he's not in the Hall of Fame. If the Hall of Fame was, although if we're being fair, if the Hall of Fame was really as stringent as they claim to be, there are a lot of guys who are in the Hall of Fame that wouldn't be in the Hall of Fame. So I think Eli will find his way there. I just don't think he's a first ballot Hall of Famer. I don't. And it's weird, right? Because ultimately he's got as many Super Bowl wins as his brother does.
Yeah.
But his brother is a more accomplished player. I mean, I think Peyton Manning's got 4 regular season MVPs. If you stack their numbers up against each other, they're not even close. So I get it. In the bigger picture, we know that Peyton was a greater player, but the ultimate goal is to win the Super Bowl, and Eli's won as many. I think Eli Manning makes the Hall of Fame, Chris. I just don't think he's one of those people that should be first ballot. First ballot to me is for like the best of the best. And I don't think he was ever one of those guys. Like you said, he was never the guy. We clump quarterbacks into like different groups. He would have been probably spent most of his career in like that second tier.
And if you look at Eli throughout his career, his career completion percentage was just over 60%, 60.3. He was that guy that multiple times throughout his career, you were like, he isn't the most accurate guy. So that was always kind of one of the knocks on Eli Manning. The other knock on Eli was the turnovers. I believe he led the league 3 times in interceptions. Those are all 20 plus interception seasons. He had 3 20 plus interception seasons, 20, 25, and 27. He almost threw 30 picks one year, Mo. That was 2013. He had 18 touchdown passes and 27 interceptions. But every season outside of his rookie season and his last season, which were not full seasons for him, he was a 10 plus interception guy. He turned the ball over a lot, which, it's not great quarterbacks do that at times. Brett Favre turned the ball over a lot. But I just come back to the conversation of what was the 2 or 3 year period where we were like, Eli's the best quarterback in the NFL. There wasn't one. So,
or even in that conversation.
Right. So if you're not there, how can you be a first ballot Hall of Famer with the same guys that were there, the same guys that were the greatest quarterbacks of their era, that were the greatest quarterbacks in the league for a 3, 4, or 5 year stretch? Like, I think, again, there are plenty of people in the Hall of Fame that we don't think should be there, but we have to give some credence to something, right? If we're going to eventually let them all in,
right,
then can we at least be like, you need to wait a little bit? Can we at least still hold the first ballot Hall of Fame a little bit higher in prestige and still kind of separate the greats from the pretty goods to the goods?
That's all I'm asking.
That's all I'm asking, Mo. All right, let's get out of here on a Tuesday. Take us to the end.
Thank you guys so much for joining Chris and I this morning. Make sure you check out all the great content that we have for you at the Wire to Wire Network, guys. We're growing. It's because of your support. Make sure you check out the morning show Monday through Fridays at 9 with me and Chris. Wire to Wire, we appreciate you.
We'll be back here same time, same place tomorrow. We got Will talking basketball. We got the NFL genius himself talking NFL stuff, all of that and more. Coffee and sports. It's the morning show.